profile, and they're going to walk in our classroom and say, here's my learner profile, now teach me, because I know how I learn. And technology is not going to go away. It's going to be a part of that. So that gets me excited because it's a new way of looking at millennials. It's a new way of teaching these kids and what they're going to bring into our classrooms. All this experiential background is something that we're going to be able to base our own teaching on. So here's our agenda. We've done the introductions insofar as we've looked at the map, and Angela was kind enough to share with me the list as you all were signing in and we were chatting. I love that about Star Talk. I love the fact that Dr. Franklin and I share teacher participants every summer. She knows the teachers that come to GMU Star Talk. I know a lot of the teachers that go to NOVASTARTALK, and it's never been a competition, but we've always shared agreeably, and I think that's to the benefit of both programs. So tonight I'm going to go over the objectives. We're going to do a PMI inventory after we watch a brief video. And then we're going to talk about brain compatible teaching and learning. We're going to look at 3 apps tonight with our 3 guest presenters. So we're going to look at Nearpod, Sock Puppets, and Chatterpix. And these are all pretty basic apps that I think a lot of people may have some familiarity with. And when I was prepping for this, it occurred to me, you really don't need to hear me talk about them as a university professor, but it's much more beneficial for you to hear classroom teachers who are actually using these or have used them in their own classrooms. And I love the opportunity to be able to feature and highlight former students and current students. So it's my pleasure and my privilege to be able to showcase them in tonight's presentation. We, of course, want to make sure that we're always in alignment and in compliance with the Star Talk endorsed principles for effective teaching. And this was a very easy one for me to align. And this was in one of the TEL domains. So this one addresses planning for lessons that contain learning experiences that are designed to keep students engaged all the time. And I think you will readily agree at the end of this that that's exactly what these 3 apps will do. So again, I'm a methods professor, so we always start every engagement by looking at the objectives, what we want to be able to know and be able to do at the end. And this is one of the objectives. We really just want you to become familiar with these 3 apps. And then hopefully you will find them with such familiarity that you'll be able to go back to your own classroom teaching and actually use them. And then we want to give you, because this is interactive, we want to give you the opportunity to actually be able to create some of these, and again, to make them language specific and grade level specific to your own individual teaching circumstance. A colleague of mine at NYU shared this proverb with me, and I've held on to it for quite some time. I hope people are not tiring of it. I just think it's a very nice proverb, and I kind of stick that in for your own reading pleasure. I'm sure Angela has already told you all that this entire webinar will go up on the NOVASTARTALK site, so you'll be able to access it. You don't need to worry about taking notes or anything like that because they do such an excellent job. They have an incredible repository of resources and webinars that we certainly take advantage of at GMU in our teacher ed program and also in our Star Talk program. So I thought we'd start tonight. This is a different Howard Gardner introduction to multiple intelligences. And this was one that was not done by Gardner himself, but by someone. When I first saw this and previewed it, I thought this is a really good introduction. So I'm going to mute my mic, and Angela has this already queued up. And so this is a very brief introduction to the theory of multiple intelligences.
Dr. Howard Gardner is an American psychologist and senior director at Harvard University. He has received numerous awards and is known around the world for his theory of multiple intelligences.
The idea of multiple intelligence comes out of psychology. It's a theory that was developed to document the fact that human beings have very different kinds of intellectual strengths, and that these strengths are very, very important in how kids learn, and how people represent things in their minds, and then how people use them in order to show what it is that they've understood. If we all had exactly the same kind of mind and there was only one kind of intelligence, then we could teach everybody the same thing in the same way.
Let's take a look at the 8 unique intelligences Gardner suggests. How do you learn best? Perhaps you will identify with one or more of the following intelligences. Mozart, U2, and Michael Jackson all had an ear for music. Those adept at reading, composing, and playing music may possess musical intelligence. Meet the needs of this intelligence by incorporating song and rhythm into your classroom. Does architecture and photography interest you? Can you find your way with a map and compass? People who love pictures, puzzles, and maps are often considered to be spatially intelligent. Incorporate these elements into your classroom to meet spatial needs. Take a nature walk, watch tadpoles morph into frogs, or study the Great Barrier Reef. These are all great examples of how to meet the needs of the naturalist intelligence. Studying the natural world is how the naturalists work. Do you keep a journal? Do people say you have a way with words? Those with linguistic intelligence, or word smarts, may enjoy learning new vocabulary or investigating word origins. Get moving, do the robot, play a sport, or act out a novel. These are all ways those with bodily kinesthetic intelligence use their gifts. Considered daydreaming to some, critical thinking is the cornerstone of intrapersonal intelligence. This type of intelligence is useful in the classroom as students analyze essays and deconstruct arguments. Excellent listening skills, the disdain for injustice, and empathy are all characteristics of the interpersonally intelligent. Conversation with others keep these students engaged. And finally, once considered the main concept of intelligence, logical mathematical intelligence encompasses a love of problem solving and strength of math and logic. The advancements of science and technology will never be enough for this intelligence.
Okay, so now we are going to do our first interactive engagement. And so this is called a PMI inventory. So what we're going to ask you to do, there are 3 questions that are a follow-up. The first one is, what would you identify as a plus about the theory of multiple intelligences? The second question is, what would you identify as a minus? And trust me, there has been great criticism levied against the theory of multiple intelligences. And I think, Maya Angelou has always said it's good to hear all the voices. So I was always a proponent of hearing about people who thought that this was not a legitimate theory. And then the third question is, what do you find interesting about MI theory? So, Angela, are they going to handle this in the chat box? Okay. So you've got a grid up in front of you, and this is where you're going to levy your answers. So in the first column, what would you identify as a plus? That's the P in the PMI inventory. And you can just start writing in your responses. And in the second column, the one in the center, what would you identify as a minus? And then the last one all the way to the right, what do you find interesting about MI theory? And the cool thing about Adobe Connect is we can all see what everyone is writing. Okay, these are good responses. Keep writing. Fit students' varied learning abilities. Ah, Sylvania, I like that. It's multilingual and multicultural. Yeah. Dr. Franklin, you're absolutely right. People do try to evoke it everywhere without understanding it. And everyone, all the participants, a lot of people often said maybe 5, 7 years ago, "Oh, I'm a left brain person. Oh, I'm a right brain person." And it was really sort of a running joke because we often have to just stop and think. You really can't function with just one half of your brain. So for someone to say, "I'm a left brain person," or "I'm a right brain person," is erroneous because we have to have both hemispheres of our brains in order to be able to function. Um, Learning is made personal and students are more engaged. Absolutely. Mayan, hard for a teacher to meet all. Yeah, it is. It's hard to meet all the learning styles. And we're going to talk about that just a little bit. In preparing for this webinar, I love to go back and see what's out there. And I don't know if those of you have engaged in watching a lot of the TED Talks. I love those TED Talks. I go to them and just punch in any big broad topic and see who the people are who are talking about it. And it's not that they are necessarily experts, but they all have very engaging and very provocative ideas about things. And so I've been watching TED. I watched a few today, and I went back and I just did a Google Scholar search to see who's writing about multiple intelligences and technology. And oh my gosh, there's a ton of stuff out there. Gadir says we learn differently. Lingyu, the categories growing. I found some online resources. There are 7 different intelligences. You're absolutely right, Lingyu. People are looking at multiple ways to define intelligence. There's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Goleman, Goleman. He came out with the idea that there is an emotional intelligence. And that's gotten a lot of traction. I must admit, though, that I'm a bit of a purist. And in my own research and my work, I've pretty much stayed with the Dr. Gardner's original 8 intelligences. And even though people credit him with existentialism, he really never came on board and sanctioned it. And Malayali, providing equal opportunity to all to show strengths through different activities geared to the different intelligences. These are great responses. This is very rich. Wonderful. Okay, let's take maybe about 30 more seconds and just everybody kind of finish your thought and have an opportunity to read what everyone else has been writing. Because this fact makes us aware of the needs of every student, teachers learn different teaching methods. That's good. Okay. Takes a lot of planning for lessons. Need time to know each student's needs. Okay, these are good. All right, so we'll leave those now, and we will go back to the PowerPoint, and you will be able to see what these now look like in summary form, which just lists them all. So on the next slide, you'll see all of the intelligences, and symbolically, they do have a definition that people use in their own teaching. However, sometimes they are very broadly defined. And I see teachers sometimes confusing multiple intelligences with learning styles. And the lines do cross, they do get blurry. And so I don't usually make a big deal about it. However, if you were to look at some of the more scholarly research, they get a little fussy about mixing up learning styles and multiple intelligences. So if you look at this next slide, understanding how the brain works, it's really kind of interesting if you've never had an opportunity to see a video or a real picture of what actually goes on in the brain. And when I think about the applications for the classroom, I think that's the other part of this that gets me really excited, because teachers then can see the brain, can see the different parts of the brain, and then make those connections with what's going on in their own classroom. So if you look at this picture, it clearly shows the hemispherity. You see the one half of the brain and the other half of the brain. But again, go back to what I said originally, and that is, someone comes up to you and says, "Oh, I'm a left brain person," you just have to sort of chuckle to yourself quietly and say, "Yes, but you really need both halves of your brain." When we know where the activity takes place in the brain that elicits certain responses, even things like smell and taste, when we understand that, it really does help us understand why students are responding in the ways that they do in our own classrooms. So now let's have some fun. Let's take a look at what your brain is doing tonight on Thursday, November 13th. What's going on with your brain? This says you really do see with your brain and not with your eyes. And so if you believe that, take a look at the next couple of slides. So you decide, is this a rabbit looking right, or is it a duck looking left? Everybody decide. Some people are saying both. Katya says a rabbit. Gadir, both. Lynn, I see both. All right, let's try another one. What does your brain see? Okay, now this time it says you have to focus on the dot in the center, but you actually need to move your head forward and backward. And tell me what's going on. Write in the chat what's going on. Just move your head back and forth, but focus on the dot in the center. Savina said they spin. Mohammed says the circles move, circles rotate. Dolly says they're moving, circles spin. It moves. Okay. All right, you're getting it. So now remember, the original slide said you see with your brain, not with your eyes. Okay. Remember that when we're talking about kids. Okay. What do you see here? Do you see a face, or do you see a face or the word liar? Both. Face first, word first, then face. Okay. No one's getting dizzy, right? We saw the face first, then the word. Okay. Katya, what did you say for Angela to say interesting? Judy said not yet. Okay. Look at it again, Judy. Then the word, Dolly. Okay. She saw the word first. Okay, gotcha. Word first, then the face. Okay. All right. So we have to understand what's going on with the brain and how the brain is processing information. Even in our language classrooms, that's really important for us. We also need to understand the reason why kids often get turned off in our classes is because it's not an active engagement for them. They find themselves sitting passively trying to learn another language. Doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And we know that technology can enable both the individual and the cooperative ways of learning languages. As a matter of fact, I found a quote today that I thought was really interesting. I wanted to share with you all tonight, and it says, actually, it's a question. It says, do students learn better with technology because it taps into so many of their intelligences? And I like that. I thought that was a really provocative question. We are all here tonight because we are very strong proponents and advocates of using language learning using technology in our language learning environments. I'm not sure everybody else is on board. As a matter of fact, we have to be aware that in some places people say we're throwing a lot of money at technology, but I'm the only Arabic teacher out in a very small community in upper Montana. And I don't have internet connection every day. So it's going to be really hard for me to sell using technology to my school board or my school or my department chair. Those are really valid arguments. as are the arguments that say that the digital divide still exists, that there are communities where technology is not a viable option, and there are communities where kids have all kinds of mobile devices and they are very, very lucrative with using them. So now we're going to go into another activity where we're going to ask you to look at this screenshot here. And this screenshot gives you some of the current apps, and they are aligned with the 8 intelligences. Actually, not all of the 8 intelligences are listed on this because the naturalist isn't there. But what we'd like for you to do now as a full group is to tell us what tech apps you are currently using. And just start writing them in, and we'll read, and I'll try to identify them and talk about them. And you may not be familiar with all of those icons that are listed there. Last year or year before, we did VoiceThread, we did Blend Space, and I know Dr. Franklin does a lot of these in the NOVASTARTALK. You can list ones that you're either using personally or in your own classrooms. Lino, Adobe Voice, Animoto. Okay. Doceri, GarageBand. Okay. Pinterest. Yeah. VoiceThread. Okay. Facebook, Google Drive. And in my own teaching, my students do a tech project in both the methods courses that I teach, and I tell them every year, every semester, try and select an app with which you are not familiar and really push yourself to learn something new. And so for some of them, and these are mostly pre-service teachers, for some of them it's PowerPoint, but they want to learn how to take that a step further. So maybe they learn how to do Prezi, or maybe they learn how to embed a video in PowerPoint. Facebook, Picolage, Google, Pinterest, iMovie, Page. Yeah, these are good. These are all good. And, I don't think we could ever come up with an exhaustive list. Skype, VoiceThread. Wow, you all are using a lot. This is great. Notability, Book Creator. We were introduced to that this summer. Cut the rope with my son. Okay, that's good. A couple more people are typing. Judy's typing. Okay, Google Plus. Okay, these are great. These are really, really good. So, look at the list that we've created in less than 2 minutes. This is fabulous. And we see a lot of repetition, which is good, which means that these are really popular and they're kind of tried and true. So hopefully the ones that we're going to introduce to you tonight, you've not had a lot of activity with. And so you'll get a chance to see them and then hear from these 3 wonderful teachers who are going to go into more detail about them. So here's our first poll activity. Angela's going to set this up so you'll go in and answer these. So the first question is, how does technology fit in today's classroom? And you can say, technology is a natural. It's there. I've heard people complain and say, we make such a big mistake by telling, when our kids walk in the door, the first thing we say is power down. We ask them to, turn off everything. When in fact, it's the technology, how kids get information, how they receive information. Ask a kid about an encyclopedia and you're going to get a blank face, a blank stare. But ask them about Twitter or Facebook or where they go for information. And the other part about technology I think is so cool and so exciting is these are collaborative tools. So kids can do them individually, but more often than not, they are collaborating. So when they're busy doing this, they are often, it's a two-way communication. So they're negotiating meaning and they are making meaning while they're using these apps. So, okay, how do you think technology fits in with today's classroom? So the 3 columns are up, and the first one, how do you think it fits? And you can start typing in, or you may want to answer the second question. Do your intelligences influence your use of technology? So if you have a strong proclivity for musical intelligence, is that going to influence what you do in your classroom? And then what measures do you take to make sure that you're reaching all the learners? And I want to go back to the earlier poll, because someone said, if you expect me to use all these intelligences, how can I do this every day? And I'm really glad to hear that, because I know it does provide some apprehension or some reticence on the half of teachers to be able to use it. One of the things that we've done in our research that I'm very happy to share with you offline is we tell teachers and share with teachers and demonstrate how to balance your teaching. So you're teaching every day, you say, well, of the 8 intelligences or the 4 learning styles, I was in this particular day, on this particular day, I was able to accommodate 4 intelligences or 3 intelligences and 2 learning styles. The next day, or if you're on block scheduling, the following day, that's how you look across your teaching and make sure that your teaching is balanced. Okay, so in the first column, Chi says engaging students, Silvina making projects easier. I use technology almost every class. Yay! In my class, it's mostly online. Yeah, now that's another thing. Thank you, Zanab, for that comment, because more and more of our critical need languages are going online. That's the way we introduced Korean at George Mason, was to be able to offer classes online. And even in the academy in Fairfax, that was the one way that we were able to keep we're able to keep the enrollments up. So I think we're going to see more and more critical need language courses taught online. Jen says using technology as a tool, support, but not as a golden ticket of knowledge. Very nicely said. In the second column, I'm so visual, I tend to use tons of colorful images. That's great. It's more engaging for students. Geeta, Pamela, sometimes I feel like we go off on tangents that aren't what the students need. I agree with you. And it sometimes it can be a moving target that we really do have to stay focused on standards-based instruction, learner-centered instruction, and then ultimately and always, what do we want students to know and be able to do? And then in the third column, different assignments and classwork, use differentiation, combine traditional tools, Nearpod and quizzes, very good. Okay, using videos, Lynn, very nice. Engage them in games. Who says learning shouldn't be fun? Of course we can have them play games. And when kids are learning and they think they're playing a game, fabulous. So much the better. Everything is a win-win. They have more choices. Okay. So you all really seem to get that idea about what your own proclivities are, what your own strengths are, and how they impact your teaching. Because I know we are, by nature, very inclined to do what's most comfortable for us. So I'm a bodily kinesthetic, I'm a verbal linguistic, and I'm a visual spatial. When I look across my teaching, I really have to bring myself under the microscope and say, okay, Marjorie, where's the logical mathematical? That's a tough one for me. And so I have to look for technology applications. I have to look for things in my own teaching that can enable those students who are very logical mathematical in their preferred intelligences and in their preferred learning styles. So now let's take a look at the 3 apps. So we've done our poll. We've done some pretty much reflection here. And we just always have to kind of go back. Let me jump back to that slide because that's really important. Why is it that these traditional approaches, look at that bottom picture. Teachers in front, kids are in rows, in line. There's obviously a very sterile classroom environment, very little engagement, very little interaction going on. And then the picture on the top, the teacher has a textbook. And I remember very clearly as a beginning teacher, it was, okay, it's Monday, it's page 1, 2, 3, exercises ABC, it's Tuesday, it's page 4, 5, 6. You see where this is going, right? So these traditional approaches, no one was engaged. The kids were death by PowerPoint or listen and repeat ad nausea. And now we have this wonderful opportunity to use all these multimodal and multisensory approaches to teaching and learning. So now we're going to explore the 3 brain-friendly apps that we have selected for you for tonight. And the first one we're going to do is Nearpod. I have aligned the 3 apps with the intelligences and with the 3 modes of communication. So the first one, Nearpod, is predicated upon the visual spatial intelligence, and it uses or incorporates the presentational mode of communication. So this slide just gives you a real brief description, and then we're going to look at a very short, like 3-minute YouTube that tells you a little bit more about Nearpod. This was one that we used in our summer program at GMU, and then when Jennifer told me that she had already been using it, I thought, well, this is perfect. This is a wonderful connection. And I noticed several of you in previous questions in polls, you also said that you had some familiarity with it. So Angela is going to queue up the YouTube, and we'll take a look at this very brief introduction to it. And I'm going to mute my mic, Angela.
I wanted students to be able to use their iPads for taking notes during lectures, but instead of them typing notes, I wanted to find a solution that would make for a more interactive experience. So through my searching, I stumbled upon an app called Nearpod. So what is Nearpod? Well, Nearpod allows teachers to create or download interactive multimedia presentations. This could be any PowerPoints, keynotes, etc. The teachers can then share the interactive lesson and control the student's activity in real time. Students then can interact and submit responses as prompted by the teacher, allowing the teacher to see data in real time. So how exactly does this work, and what does it look like on a teacher's iPad? Prior to the lecture, the teacher would upload or create a presentation and add it to their library. Next, the teacher would access or find the lecture from their library and launch a live session. Once the teacher launches a live session, a 5-letter PIN is generated. Students are then instructed to enter this PIN on any device that supports the Nearpod app. As students join the presentation, they appear on the teacher's student list. When all students are signed in, the teacher can start the presentation. As the teacher goes through the presentation, the slides are shown on the students' devices. Embedded in the presentation are student activities in which the student is prompted to complete a task. As the students complete each task and submit it, their responses are immediately available for the teacher to view. With using Nearpod, I've made a more interactive learning experience for my students. I've also seen an increase in class participation, and I now have a more effective and efficient way to collect students' data.
Okay, before I introduce Jen, so just a few of the highlights of Nearpod. As you can see, it's highly interactive. You can use it for polls and videos, question and answers. It's also a great way to check for comprehension, and you can add an existing PowerPoint to it. So these are just a few, again, not an exhaustive list, but just to show you how applicable this can be to your classroom teaching. So now I'm going to introduce Jennifer Santiago. She's a doctoral student at George Mason, and she is a teacher in Fairfax County Public Schools who has used Nearpod. And Jennifer, I'm going to mute my mic and let you go.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So I need to share my screen. There we go. So share my screen with you all so you can see. I have 2 Nearpod presentations that I'm going to show with you, as well as I have the reports that we get when students use the Nearpod. So I hope that you can all see. What I have right here is the welcome to the session sign. This would be the first page, so if I assign this link as a homework to my students, we have a class web page. So on the web page, they would just go into the web page, and we've done this during class, and we've done this during class, and they can do it at home. So they go into class, they click on the link, they go here, they type in their name. It's really important that they type in their real name and not a nickname that you don't know, because at the end of it, you get a report of all of their classwork, their answers to questions, and so you need to know, if you're assessing it, who's getting that assessment. So what I really like about Nearpod is that I can do a variety of different types of assessments and types of things. And so I can help students. I'm addressing in my classroom English language learners who are new to the country, and I can help students with visual aids and with audio. And so I'm going to show you how I can do that and how I can get them writing, that's the biggest thing for my students to start using, is their writing in English. And yes, I see Jing Wu asked if these apps are free, and I know that you can get Nearpod for free, but you can also pay to have more applications for this group. So you can see the beginning of this, we were talking about founding documents of the United States government. And so students we've talked about the Constitution, and so here they would answer, what is the Constitution? So they would type in their answer here. The Constitution is, and then they would submit it. And at the bottom, they click send, and this is going to come straight to me. So the Constitution of the United States was created very early in the 1770s. So we want to see that life in the 1770s is very different than life today. So now we need to think about, what are the differences? So the visual identification of these things for students who have very little English is really helpful in thinking about, oh, this is the 1770s. I can think about that. I have background knowledge about this now. And then in 2014, wow, the world is really different. We have the same document governing the United States. So now we've seen pictures of 1770s and 2014, so students need to tell me in an open-ended question and use their English, what's different about the 1770s and 2014. And they would type this and then submit it to me again. Let me mute this. Sorry. So on this page, I have new words that I'm introducing to students about amendments and the amendment process for the United States Constitution. The great thing about Nearpod here is that while students are working independently, you can see at the bottom, there's a play button here, and you wouldn't be able to hear this through the webinar right now, and I can share the link to this later so you can go through and see it. But they would click play, and it has my voice. I recorded my voice so that it reads the entire slide to them. And then all of my language learners are Spanish speakers, so in basic Spanish, I tell them also in Spanish, so that I'm using their first language, I'm supporting their first language, and I'm supporting their English language development. And then the next one is also, the audio is right in my ear. So again, I have more information about the amendments and how we use amendments. And then again, I have the audio of me speaking the words to them in English and in Spanish.
Jen, we had a question from Katja asking if Nearpod can be used asynchronously.
So I'm not sure if I understand. So I think yes, like you can. So I promote to the students that I provide the link that they can do it as homework, and they can work independently in the classroom where I do self-directed learning with them, so that I can do small groups with other students. But we can also do it where I present it live stream, and so we're working together as a group, and they're kind of adding comments and working through it all together and separately at the same time.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes.
Sure.
And Katja says thank you too.
You're welcome, Katja. Thank you for the question. So I really like the fact that I can do the voiceover with this, because a lot of times there's a lot of other programs that I can't use the voiceover to help students if they're doing self-directed learning. Again, I have another open-ended discussion, and then I have an embedded video that they would watch. It's a Schoolhouse Rocks video about the Constitution, and so they do that, and then at the end is just directions and another voiceover that they need to do reading, and the books are located in the back of the classroom, so they have to go do that. So I love that. And then I'll show you the reports that I get from this. So if I go to my Nearpod page, I have my presentation library and then my reports. And so I go to my reports for the amendment, and you can see we just did this one in class. So all of my students are here that participated, and I can see right away who did the work, who didn't really do the work. But then I can also go to, so I didn't have a quiz in this one, but I did have open-ended questions. So my open-ended questions here, I can go in and see how students did. And I allowed students to respond in Spanish or a mixture of English and Spanish. So it really helped them assess their background knowledge, and that I knew they understood the content, even if they were using their native language or they were trying to use their English. So it was just a great way for them to kind of practice using English and practice writing in English. Oh yeah. So so Sylvania, I'm sorry if I said that wrong. She says the reporting is what I think Nearpod lacks, some deeper work. You can't create columns, or at least I can't. Oh, that's true. It's really just it's generated by the program. You can't generate it. But what I do really like about this is in this other, so this is the other Nearpod that I created, and this one has more multiple choice questions. So what I love about this is that I can have the picture here about the Great Plains for my 7th graders. They've learned all about the Great Plains and Native American tribe experiences when settlers moved west. So we're picture cueing, so they have the background knowledge, they can use the language, and they can use pictures to help them access the language. So their pre-assessment for this before we went into the PowerPoint is of the 3 questions: who lived in the Great Plains with Native American tribes. And then after that, I have a PowerPoint, which I had already developed, and I can just add it into Nearpod. And so they can go all the way through it. They have interactive notebooks where they have to add in information to their notes. So everything that's red and highlighted, underlined, they have to add into their notes. So it helps them do some reading comprehension. It helps, I love the PowerPoint feature too, Sylvania. It really helps with them being able to do self-directed learning and small group work, so that I can have the class doing a bunch of different stations at the same time, and they can still feel productive. So the pictures are really easy to find. Like, the PowerPoint just plops right in there from any PowerPoint you already have existing. So this is really, really exciting to just add in there. And then at the end, I have an open-ended question about this again. So we talked about the Dawes Act, and so the Dawes Act made a lot of Native Americans change who they were. If they wanted to live outside reservations, they had to change things about themselves. So I asked the students, access your background information, and if you had to change something about yourself to fit in, how would that make you feel? And so it made it more accessible to them. It was private, so if they really wanted to say something private, it was just between them and I. And so that was great, and maybe a class discussion that they wouldn't have felt really comfortable having in. So I also allowed the students to work together. So if some of the information was difficult to access, they could work with a partner next to them on their laptops, and they would be able to do that fine. This is one of my favorite things about Nearpod, is that they can draw it. So here we learned about how we learned about how the buffalo herds were really killed off when people moved west. And so the question here was, you need to draw what happened to the buffalo. So students have like their little tools and they can draw, like, I'm a terrible artist, so we'll have like a little buffalo here. Like, oh, hey, buffalo. And so I said, okay, so the kids were all like, look, I have a buffalo, Miss Santiago. I was like, that's great, but you need to show what happened to the buffalo. So then they went like this. I was like, well, that's perfect. That is exactly what happened to the buffalo. So I really love this because my kids that don't have a lot of English can still provide me with the information in a drawn form. But I also have kids that are really excellent at drawing or want to really explore the use of technology. So this is a really fun and exciting way to do that. They're showing what they're learning, but they're also having fun doing it. I'm sure college students do love this feature. I feel like they all love this feature. They were drawing all sorts of things and then erasing it. They did that for a while. Then we have a quiz that they took. And so what happened to the buffalo? Nothing changed for the buffalo. Most of the buffalo were killed. And so I do this as just a closing activity to assess what they've learned. And really, they have to answer it. If they don't, they get this sign. You haven't answered. Are you sure you want to continue? And I told them all, you have to answer. But of course, I can just keep going. Then the Dawes Act, which is a really important aspect for them to understand, and we've been talking about a lot. And then they are ready. So I ended with an open-ended question, and again, a political cartoon, because it's very important for them to be able to analyze a political cartoon, and regardless of their level of language knowledge, they really have this, they really have the ability to just look at this and tell me analyze what's happening here. Sylvania has a question. It'd be nice if you could group students inside Nearpod. That's absolutely correct. It would be nice if you could group them inside Nearpod and share the canvas. But yeah, I did pay for the next level of the Nearpod, and I don't have that capability, but I usually use this inside my classroom, and we have netbooks. So while they can't do the canvas together, which that would be really cool, they can sit next to each other and kind of talk about what they would draw. And some of the kids helped other people draw in their computer and then in another computer, just so it was fun. Oh, motion detector, just, sorry, the lights turned off. So then it ends, and after that, at the end of the day, I get a report that's emailed to me and tells me how many students were participated, and so in this one I had 49 students participate. So it tells me how many people participated, how many people completed it, what their corrections were, how did they do, and then I can go through and see specifically how they did on the quiz, how they did on the open-ended, and what they did for drawing what happened to the buffalo. So overall, I think it's a really interesting app. I like that I can use it on the PC also, because most of my students don't have a mobile device, and I don't have them in the classroom. So because I have netbooks or I have access to laptops within the school, I can assign this onto like our class website, like I said, and the students can work on it in our class with the netbooks, and it's really easy to do. But then the kids who do have the mobile devices can access it as well. So I think Nearpod's pretty exciting because it really adds some more elements of learning that we aren't getting in just like a PowerPoint. So I can do the voiceover, I can have them draw things, I can have them write things, and I can have them read things. And I'm really accessing so many modes of communication and so many areas of language learning. So I'm really happy with it. This does work well for a flipped classroom. Yeah, it works well for a blended classroom too. And so I'm really excited about it. It does really engage the visual spatial intelligence. Can you access time on task with this? Well, that's a good question. Let's see. I'll just explore it right now. It doesn't look like you can. From here, it just has their answer. It doesn't really say how long they took working on the time on task. but that would be interesting to know too. But as I know, we did this in class, so I know that they're using it for the amount of time that we were in class. So this is sent as homework, Sylvania. This is the report I get as homework, and that's how I've been assigning it to my students so far. Does anyone have any other questions? I keep forgetting that you can see me and I'm all slouchy. Thanks, Angela.
Okay, Jennifer, we're giving you a air high five and a big thank you for doing that.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to try to get... All right, I'm going to turn off the webcam now and my mic. Is that okay?
Okay. Okay, big thanks to Jennifer for that. And now we're going to go on to our second app. Just going to get back there. And this one is going to feature the verbal linguistic intelligence. And this will align very nicely with the presentational mode of communication. So if you've heard of Chatterpix before, you probably think, wow, this is really elementary, or it wouldn't work, you know, with middle school kids or secondary kids, but it will, and it does. Now, our guest presenter who's going to share with you is Gadir. She's at the Islamic Saudi Academy, and she does teach younger kids, and I know she has been extremely enthusiastic about sharing this particular app with you because she's done it in her own classroom. So we'll let Angela introduce this, the YouTube. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Gadir, and she's going to share with us her use of Chatterpix. So I'm going to mute my mic, and Gadir, you're up.
And Gadir, you should be able to turn your microphone on now. And what I will do is I will queue up the video of Chatterpix.
Thank you.
Shall I play it first, or do you want to talk about it first?
Can you play it first?
Of course. Give me one
Would
second.
you? Thank you. Sure.
Signs for corners, for signs for corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a square. Triangle, triangle, 3 sides. 1, 2, 3. Triangle, triangle, 3 corners. It's a triangle. Around it and no corners. Yes. Around the 0 side. Yes. Around it goes. Around it goes. It's a circle.
Good evening, everybody. This is Gadir, and thank you, Dr. Haley, for introducing me. As we saw in the app, it's so easy to use the Chatterpix. It's just like the YouTube video showed us. You only have to take a picture, then draw a line to make a mouth, record your voice, and watch your picture talk. You can also add filters, stickers, and text to your photo, and then the final step, you share your talk and photo with your voice. Some things this app could be used for, as teachers, it could be like to check for quick comprehension and understanding. It could be for story retelling, how to explain how things go, and then teaching reading, chants, and songs. And in my classroom too, I use it as an formative or summative assessments, and sometimes I use it as an exit ticket. I used it in my classroom on 3 separate occasions. The first time I used this app to teach my students a list of sight words specific for that week. We practiced reading the words aloud every day, and then my students recorded themselves reading the list. As an assessment, I used the same list and had my students record their voices reading it individually. For that purpose, I took a photo of the list and displayed it on the board, and my students did the rest of the work. Although I teach level 1 ESL, but these students are amazing with technology. They captured the photo of the list and followed the easy steps for creating the talking list, as they call it. The second time, my students used the app to sing a song. And you all heard it in the video. It teaches them the plane shapes in regard to how many sides and how many corners. This group took a photo. Some groups took a photo of a triangle. However, this particular student, he Googled it, and he wanted the circle and the square and the triangle to be all present in his song. So he added his voice, creating talking shapes using this app. Another way that I use it in my classroom, I use it as an exit ticket in a science class, and after finishing a lesson about amphibians, I instructed my students to record at least 3 facts they learned about them using this app, and they all did a wonderful job about it. My students like to use this app. They're by now addicted to it because it's easy to use and it allows them to be creative as well. The only drawback is the time limit. Many times they have to revise their message so it fits within the 30 seconds that they have, and the app allows them to record. I like it because it empowers them, especially because they are level 1 students, and it allows them to show their creativity and, most importantly, practice the language. It's highly interactive too, and students can work together or work individually to provide the final product, which is a talking photo. And as Dr. Haley mentioned, I mean, it's not specific for elementary. Middle schoolers and high schoolers could use it too. So that's my app, and it's fun and it's easy to use. And I use it in the language class, in the math, and in the science class. We have a question. Can you pay for more time? Oh no, I'm sorry. So yeah, the max recording is 30 seconds. Yes, so we have to do menu revision to make sure that you fit the 30 seconds time limit. Their message has to be short and sweet, so it fits the 30 seconds time limit. Any other questions about the app?
Have questions, they can also continue to leave them in the chat. Gadir will be there, and she can respond as we plug away. I'll turn the mic back to Dr. Haley.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Gadir, you also are getting a very silent but a very emphatic thank you for that, a high five. That was wonderful. And I knew you were excited about this when you emailed me and said your kids were addicted. I knew that was definitely a good sign. So, okay, everyone. So now you've seen 2 apps and 2 very energetic and excited teachers who are using these 2 brain-friendly apps very successfully. And so now it's your turn. So we're going to do something now that's a highly interactive part of the presentation. And I'm going to back up and get that slide for you that says now it's your turn. Let me keep going. There's Chatterpix. And okay, so for this one, we are going to break you out. We're going to give you 10 minutes. You can break out by groups, and what we'll give you the opportunity to do is to have a group for those of you who want to be in the chatter picks, or the group who wants to be in Nearpod. And we're going to ask.
I'm gonna split them in half. Adobe Connect is just gonna cut them right down the middle. So,
Okay, then.
the room that Marjorie, the room that you will be in will be room 1, and
Okay.
Dr. Franklin, you will be in room 2. So I guess room 1 can be near pod, and room 2 will be Chatterpix. And I will go to both rooms just to remind everybody which room is which. But if you have Dr. Haley in your room, you are near pod, and if you have Dr. Franklin in your room, you are Chatterpix.
Okay, so let me give you the instructions so everybody knows, because we're going to be in the rooms for about 10 minutes, but this should be highly interactive. So what we'd like for you to do is, depending on the room that you're in, create an activity that you could very likely take back to your classroom tomorrow and use with your students. And here's an idea, here's a model. So you might want to come up with an activity with something that might incorporate food or geography or clothing, or it might be some culturally significant aspect of the target language or target culture that you're teaching. So how might you use these? What's the practicality of using them? Does anyone have a question about what I'm asking you to do? All right.
When you get into the breakout rooms, you'll be able to use your microphones. I'll make sure of that as well. You can either type in the chat or use your mic.
Okay. So
Are we ready to break out?
7-Eleven, we're going to take 10 minutes for this.
Okay, I'm going to break you guys out now, and then I'll give you a 2-minute warning as well. All right, take care.
Okay.
All right, everyone, we're all back in the main room, and I just want to do a little bit of technical administrivia before we get started with our sharing. If you would like to speak on behalf of your group for the next portion of our presentation, if you could please click on the raise your hand icon on the top of the screen, and I will pass the mic to you.
Okay, so thank you, Angela. That was short and painless. So now,
Excellent.
so now we're going to have the groups share. And Sylvania, I'm going to ask you to share from our group, and we'll get someone to share from the other groups. So we just need one volunteer just to talk about the idea. And actually, we raised a lot of questions that we tried to resolve in our group, in the Nearpod group. So Sylvina, why don't you go, please? Oh, she said, I'd rather not. Okay. Okay, Gadir, if you're still there, why don't you go then? I know Nearpod was not yours, but you were in on the conversation. So Gadir, would you go? Okay, I'm not. Let me see if I can get Gadir. And if I can't get her, I'll do it. Gadir. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay, her microphone might be off. All right, we'll give her just a couple seconds to come through. Why don't we do the Chatterpix group while we're waiting for Gadir's mic to come up? So Dr. Franklin asked, who's the speaker for that group? Oh, mic on now. Okay, is that you, Gadir? Okay.
Hold on, let me promote her and
All right.
see if that helps. Okay. Gadir, you should be able to turn your mic on.
Dr. Muhammad, you have been prompted by Dr. Franklin to speak up for that group.
I'm promoting Dr. Muhammad.
Oh, okay. Gadir's still having technical difficulties. Jen
Okay.
Santiago, you want to speak up?
Hold on. I'm promoting everyone. Everyone's getting promoted.
Okay. Okay.
So did you want me to talk about Chatterpix?
Please.
Okay, that was the group I was in. So Dr. Franklin, Dr. Asa had really good ideas, so that's why he definitely got voluntold for that position. We talked about some really great ideas for using Chatterpix, and we came up with some really fun things. So one of Dr. Asa's ideas was to, if we had a picture of Mount Rushmore and had the students do some voiceovers for the different presidents and do information, like a quick bio of who each president was. That would have been fun. Sarah and I also in the group discussed doing a picture of a pupusa, which is like a traditional Latin American dish. And
Right.
so then students could voice over like sequencing of how to make that dish. Some other ideas, which were really cute, were having pictures of fruits and vegetables, and then how would those voices sound for different fruits and vegetables. And so one of the comments was, it would be really fun to find out what an apple or a strawberry or a salad sounds like.
Oh, that's cute. I like that.
I know, it was really cute. So we had a really great discussion about a bunch of different ideas of how we could use Chatterpix, and I'm pretty excited to use it. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Okay.
Yeah.
Were we able, Angela, were we able to get Gadir back up?
I think that her audio is a little bit slow. Now, was Mayanne in your group? I know that her mic is probably working too.
Yes, yes.
Let
Let's
me
get
promote,
her, please.
let me promote Mayanne, if you do not mind.
No, that's fine. That's great. There we go.
Okay, I don't know if I can represent in this group, but I thought to share, because we actually were discussing about how to get connected and how to get projected and you know, the
Right.
difficulty of the tech
Right.
issues. I did share a little bit of my idea about thinking of it since I'm teaching Chinese. I say that I had several cultural videos, which is a little bit long and it's hard to share during the class time. Maybe use that as a side, use Neopad to have a student watch it, have maybe a time to chat, interact to it, or you know, maybe I can ask some questions and raise a discussion or a short writing to respond to it. The other one I thought of a flipped classroom, which especially when I am teaching some of the grammar parts, and for the student who have a little bit hard time to digest in a short time, we'll give them ample time to prepare in advance of a class. And
That's
anything
great.
to add on, please?
No, that was fine. That was fabulous. You're right. We did. We asked a lot of technical questions because we were trying to figure out if we could do these in multiple languages. And then Sylvina said we could use 2 iPads, one to project and one to use as a demonstrator. So we were sort of working out the technical things that we still had questions with. Still very informative. We didn't really create an activity, but we did get our questions resolved and answered. So thank you for speaking on behalf of our group. So, okay, Angela, I think we are now at the point where we had built in a break, and you all have been just wonderful in being very interactive, and we're going to ask you just to answer a couple true-false questions, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break and come back and do our third app. So just post your answer in the chat at the bottom of the screen. The first true-false question is, my students are going to learn the target language if I provide an interactive, a learner-centered instruction that's meaningful and has real-world applications. Just pop in your answer there. I don't think we're going to get any surprises. This is true-false. Oh, hi, Wasan. Okay. Keep going. Those are good. Okay, again, I don't think we'll get any surprises. That's kind of a no-brainer, too. Lots of truths. Okay, second question. Using a lesson plan template helps me to reflect on how effective instruction and assessment are. True, false? Good. Okay. We've got a couple false. Okay. Another couple false. Okay. All right. That's very interesting. So I have to ask this question. I can't go to the break. So the people that answered false, let me hear from you. Why do you think, why did you say false? And Rosalina said depends. Okay, so, okay, a couple people are talking. I'm just interested why you feel a lesson plan template's not going to help you reflect on how effective instruction and assessment are. So I'm standing at the ready. Glad to have you back, Adir. Turned off some other things. Okay. So we're just going to wait just a couple seconds and see what these responses are, and then we're going to take a quick 5-minute break and then come back and do our third app. So if anyone needs to pop out and get a glass of water, although I plan to get the result, it may turn out different. Okay, Lynn. And let's see, one more. Dr. Asa, you said false. I really want to hear from you. Someone said, I agree. I agree, true. Okay. Because the
Dr.
lesson plan
Aces,
does not reflect
there
on
you go.
how effective instruction are, but it represents what we are going to teach, I guess. I did. Okay. Okay. All right. Plan, plan, plan. Thank you, Gadir. Shukran. I think and it's true. Okay. All right. And let's wait to hear from Ling Yu, who's still typing, and then we'll go to our break. Angela, while we're waiting for that, any instructions for the 5-minute break for the group?
Feel free to step away for a second. We'll play a little bit of music. We will also hang out here. So if you have any other questions for the fabulous presenters that we have had go thus far, or any of your colleagues that are here attending, or any of us that are helping to facilitate, please do not hesitate to ask us. And if you prefer to use your microphone, you can do so during the break, although it will be a fast 5 minutes.
Okay, so it's 7:32, so everybody please try to come back at 7:37 promptly, because we do want to stick to the schedule, okay? So Angela's going to cue the music, and we're going to take a quick 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, that's exactly why Angela does what she does, because she's a task mistress and she keeps us exactly on time. So thank you, Angela, for having the clock up. We appreciate that.
On with the show.
On with the show. Now we're going to move on. For the next app, we have aligned it with the interpersonal intelligence and with the interpersonal mode of communication. So the last app is Sock Puppets. And again, at first blush, one might think, this is really elementary. Well, the teacher that I'm going to introduce to you in a few minutes, Sarah Akab, is a high school teacher in Prince William County. So the screen shows you a very brief description of sock puppets. And on the next screen, you're going to see an introduction via YouTube. So I'm going to mute my mic, and Angela's going to cue it up.
This video will show you how to use the app called Sock Puppets. This app can be used to present new information or to have students present information in presentations. With the free app, you get 30 seconds of recording time, then you can pay extra money to add the recording time. So to start off, what you need to do is open the app, Sock Puppets. You're going to go to New and pick a character. You can pick up to 4 puppets at a time. Just for right now, I'm going to pick just one so you can see the concept. And then you hit Next down at the bottom of the screen. You can pick out of the various backgrounds. Once again, you can add more backgrounds by paying more money. Let's go with the schoolroom. Hit Next. And then you can add props in there as well. Yellow is movable while you're recording, so you can move them. Red is they won't move while you're recording. I'm not going to pick any for this particular presentation. Every time I'm talking, it's moving its mouth the way that my mouth would move. In order to record, what you do is you hit the record button. Today we're talking about the Sock Puppet. It's a neat app that lets you present information in a silly and fun way. It's the kids also love to play around with it to present new information. If you see up in the corner, it's telling us how much time we have left, with 16 seconds, 15 seconds. We hit stop, and then it tells you that it's going to scrub your voice, and that's when your voice becomes silly. So if we wait just a second, it'll show. Some of the neat things that you can do, first you can save it so that you can open it later. So you give it a title. I'm just going to call it sock for right now. And then it gives you the opportunity to share it in different places. You can share it on Facebook, you can share it on YouTube, and all you have to do is hit YouTube and it'll sign you into you have to sign into your account and it lets you load it. Another thing you can do is you can add 99 cents. For 99 cents, put it to your photos, so then you can put it inside of a movie. One other thing I wanted to show you before I finish is you can also change the settings of their voices. So I go to settings, and if you see here, each puppet that we have, it allows us to go higher or lower or more normal. So when you're changing that, fun. So that's it in a nutshell. Really, I use this app a lot for presenting information. I allowed students to present some information about storms by taking turns with a puppet, and they read one line or one fact about the weather topic that they had. Here's an example of the student's presentation.
Go. Did you know lightning is an electrical spark? Lightning can strike metal. Lightning can make fires. Lightning can strike trees.
Okay, and with that, I'm just going to show you a few of the featured highlights of sock puppets. As you can see, it's highly creative, it can be cultural, it's extremely imaginative, and it's also very interactive. So now I'm very happy to introduce Sarah to you. And as I said, Sarah is a high school teacher in Prince William County, and she has used sock puppets with her high school kids, and now she's going to tell you her experiences. Sarah?
All right. Hello, everybody, and Assalamu alaikum for my Arabic speakers out there. So Dr. Haley mentioned that sock puppets can be used also in the secondary classroom, and when I was first introduced to sock puppets, I was kind of skeptical. I'm like, this is going to be real babyish, but my high school students absolutely love it. So what I found is that it's really great for students who perhaps don't always want to talk in class because they get nervous, and especially in a second language. I teach English as a second language. So it can kind of take away that feeling of nervousness, and they can actually have oral practice by using this app. And then the other thing is that if they want to do it by themselves, they can, but they can also do it with a group, which is really nice. So I've done several different things with it, and I'm going to show you some examples of the products that my students produced using it. The thing is with it, though, they have to upload their videos onto YouTube. So that's actually where you can actually see the work that they've done. I mean, they can share it through Facebook too. And then if you pay for the app, you can have them send it to you like a link, like a file, and you can just download it. So I think we have one of the videos. I'll show it to you and then talk to you about the creation of this video.
Red, أحمر. Blue, أزرق. Green, أخضر. Yellow, أصفر. Black, أسود. White, أبيض.
All right, so that video was actually a video that I did with my son because I was thinking, you know, he loves using the iPad so much and he loves going to YouTube, and what a great way to have him be learning something. So we decided to do practicing colors in Arabic. So you can hear him practicing the colors in Arabic, English and Arabic, and then he likes, of course, to watch himself all the time and listen to himself on YouTube. So he plays it over and over again, which is really great. The next video I have, I'll show you, and this one is with my students.
The title of the map is World. One symbol on the key is color green for forest. The compass rule shows all the cardinal directions.
So with that, the students had to look at a map, and we were learning about map features. So the students were then looking, each group had a different map, and they would have to, instead of, you know, circling or labeling a map feature, they could actually talk about it orally, and I could use it as kind of a formative assessment with them. And it's just a fun way to do it. You know, kids get bored of writing all the time, and, you know, as any second language expert would tell you, like, they need to use multiple modes of communication to really grasp the language. And so having them present the information in an oral way is really helpful. And, you know, and they could write it ahead of time what they wanted to say so that they could practice it and, you know, it comes out correctly. The maximum recording time for one show is 30 seconds per speaker. So if you have one speaker, it would just be 30 seconds, but I think you can have up to 4 speakers, and so it would be 2 minutes. Okay. This is the last video, and this one was with students that I had last year, and it was doing a writer's workshop. So in writer's workshop, the students are reading some kind of text, and then they're creating their own kind of dialogue that would incorporate some of the themes of the text and the characters from the text. So I thought it would be a cool way for them to present it. Instead of them coming up in front of the class and acting it out, they could use the sock puppets to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. We are so happy you're here to help us. We will work with you to build a school in our village for everyone, and we will help you to make the bridge so you can get the supplies here.
So my students were level 2 students, and we had read Listen to the Wind, and that was their, I didn't play all of it, but their dialogue that they had with the characters from the book. So Ghadir, you can choose one puppet or more puppets. It just depends on how many people are in the group. All right, so that's all about sock puppets. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Sarah? You can type them in the chat, and we'll give you just a couple of seconds. Multiple people are writing, Sarah, so we'll give them a chance to ask their questions. Giving you a really big air high five here. Great job. And I really wanted that particular app to be shown so that it worked with teachers. And I wrote a note in the chat that said, I mean, it would be used with secondary students. When we did that with our teachers over the summer, I thought the same thing that you said. They're going to say, oh, this is so babyish, but they really, really loved it. So, Sarah, are you reading this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think you can have, the maximum is 4 to a show. You can have 1 or 2 students. You don't have to, I mean, you have to have at least 1 student is the minimum. Yeah, it is really great to use with beginner students. That's who I used it with this year, and I could really see them coming out of their shells about talking in English, because I think a lot of people get nervous with speaking a foreign language, especially in the beginning, so that was really nice. Yeah, you can make I think if you pay for the app, you get more options in what you do, but honestly, just having it the way it is really useful in class, just the free app.
Angela, Lynn had a question about the voice not being clear, and we do use sock puppets quite a bit, and I just wanted to mention that I think that the garbling has to do with the webinar, us feeding the video through that, but when you use sock puppets, the audio is actually pretty good for an app.
Okay, I see people are still responding, so I don't want to shut anyone off. So keep sending your comments or your questions to Sarah, and we'll take about 1 more minute to finish those.
Oh, how many minutes for 4 students to prepare a show? It would be 2 minutes, so 30 seconds per student, or 30 seconds per puppet.
Lingyu, this is Angela. If you would like to see some examples of Chinese being used, we have several on the NOVASTARTALK website of our instructors speaking in Chinese with the app, and it works quite well. We also have some examples of Arabic and of Farsi.
Oh, to prepare the show? Yeah, it's really up depending on what you want to do with the app. I mean, sometimes my students, like when they did the writer's workshop, took a long time to prepare for it, so maybe a couple of class periods, because they had certain things they had to include in the dialogue that they were presenting. Other times it could just be kind of like a free response or something that wasn't planned, so it wouldn't need as much time.
Okay, good job, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And it was so good that everyone had so many questions and so many comments. And of course, it's just an added bonus that NOVASTARTALK has samples in the respective languages already up. So in the interest of time, everyone, we're going to skip doing the last group activity where we're going to ask you to go back and to get into groups and to come up with an activity and then to be able to share them. What I'd like to do now is just to move forward and talk about assessing apps, because that really is sort of the culmination of tonight's webinar, is to give you an opportunity to see one of the takeaways, one of the deliverables. I've prepared a Word document for you that will help you to decide which apps work best for you. And I started off by saying that these brain-friendly apps are only as good as we want them to be. If they are by design faulty, then as discerning consumers, we can kind of weed out what doesn't work for us. So what I'm going to ask you to do in this next slide, it says there's one for the road. And so I picked an app that many of you may have familiarity with, and if you don't, BrainPop has been around for quite a while, and I've given you the URL there. So hopefully what you will do then, Angela will show you how to get, there are 2 deliverables for tonight. One is a rubric, which is just a Word doc. It is not copyrighted. So I didn't put my name at the bottom of it. My name is at the top, but you are certainly welcome to use this as a public domain document. And there are categories that you will then use to rate the level of engagement, the developmental appropriateness, the instructional design, motivation, and accessibility. And it's just a Likert scale of 1 to 4. And this idea actually came to me in the planning session. It was Angela and I were talking about this, and she said, I really think teachers need to be able to assess these apps on their own. So maybe you could come up with something, she said, that after the webinar that they would take this away. So that's exactly what this is. And of course, BrainPop is an app that's predicated upon being able to be multimodal and multisensory and have students be able to engage interactively using a wide variety of intelligences. So that's why I selected that. Now, I would like for us to spend the last 4 minutes, if we could, just to have you, what I call, share your light bulb moments. I'm really interested to hear from you. One of the reasons I wanted tonight's webinar to be interactive and to have guest presenters to come in is because we all learn from one another. So let's use the chat at the bottom of the screen, and just if you have any light bulb ideas, if something that you want to share that maybe you know, the rest of the group didn't know about, if you would just kind of type those in now, and we'll just take a couple minutes and do this. I want to share with you while you're doing that something that came to me. And I've got my iPad out. I want to make sure I give it to you correctly. I found this app called Earth Viewer. Earth Viewer, and I'll type that in. It is the neatest thing. It goes through, it's interactive, but you can actually see the Earth in various stages through the millennia. And you just move your finger. Has anyone ever seen that before? Earth Viewer. It's a free app. I love things that are free. Yes, it is free. It's absolutely free. So you put your finger on it, and you can slide up and down this scale that takes you through what the Earth looked like. It shows the shifts in the continents. It's really it's quite interesting. So what other kinds of things would you all like to share? What are some of your light bulb ideas? Oh, for the naturalist intelligence, what apps could we use? You know, I don't have a particular app in mind, but we had this conversation recently about that app, and a friend of mine teaches in New York City, and she was trying to get her students to come to some mutual agreement about homeopathic versus store-bought medicine. And so she had her kids actually go online, and they did searches where they looked at medicines or homeopathic medicines that were indigenous to their respective countries compared to over-the-counter things like Tylenol, ibuprofen, and it was very interesting. And that was all naturalists. They also looked at genetically modified foods now. So, you know, hopefully kids are eating more healthy, and they are paying much more careful attention to the ingredients on foods that they're consuming. Again, naturalists looking at the eco-friendly system in which we procure our foods. A new browser. Okay, I'm trying to read and follow along here. Any other light bulb ideas? Angela, have I missed anything? Okay. Okay. All right. So let me leave you with I have 1 minute. So let me leave you with just a couple things that I would like. Oh, you like Poplet. Yeah, I've seen that one too, Gadir. I like that one too. Computers and technology really do give students a multi-sensory smorgasbord. And I think that's why technology is going to be with us. I don't think it's a passing phase. I think we are in an age of technology, and I think we probably are going to be here for quite a long time. The other thing I want to leave you with is that at least 1/3 of our students are visual learners. 1/3 of our students. So if we're not teaching to that intelligence, we're missing a lot of kids. And anytime 3 or more intelligences are used to introduce new material, the greater chances of long-term retention there are. If we can do at least 3 intelligences in a language classroom on any given day, chances are far greater that students are going to remember what it is that we've done. And they're going to learn more and be able to use the language in a communicatively competent manner. I hope you've enjoyed tonight. I want to thank my colleague, Dr. Laura Franklin. I want to thank Angela for helping with the dress rehearsal and doing all the tech checks and helping this get set up. The 28 people who attended, thank you. I have a great affinity and affection for NOVASTARTALK because they're doing such great work, and we all benefit and prosper when we share ideas. And again, we're so lucky to be in an area where we can communicate and collaborate on projects that keep in mind that it's all about moving the learner forward and the devotion and commitment we have to the profession. So thank you all very much for everything and for attending tonight. Offline, my email address is on the PowerPoint. If I can do anything to help you answer any questions once we go off, I'm very happy to do that. So Angela, I'm going to mute my mic and turn it back to you.
Can we just get another big round of applause for Dr. Haley? This was a fabulous session, as usual. I am so excited to take away all of the rich ideas that she shared with us, and also to collect all of the examples that you produce when you go out and you use these apps and the strategies that she's presented, that the teachers that she's invited to this session have presented. Please continue to share with us what you're doing and what your students are doing with all of this new knowledge. We have recorded this session. We will make this session available to you online. I just saw, Will, you said you had many technical difficulties, but glad to have made it. For those moments that you had glitches and were not able to catch pieces, you'll be able to rewatch this session back from the NOVASTARTALK website. We will stick around for a little bit more. You guys have been with us for a very long time. I know you like to stay and ask questions, but I'm just going to stick around for maybe another 3 minutes or so. If you have any pressing questions, feel free to answer, and then after that, we will close for the evening. But thanks again for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it, and a special thanks to Sarah, to Jennifer, to Gadir, and to Dr. Marjorie Hall Haley for everything this evening.